Autism is not a disease, it's a condition. Autism is my superpower. I don't suffer from autism.
23-year-old Pranav Bakhshi is working with Thomson Reuters and loves anything to do with lights, camera and action. He became India's first model with autism after he walked the ramp for Lakme Fashion Week.
I like to pose in front of the camera and I do poses and expressions in front of the mirror, and I like to walk the ramp because it makes me feel good and I don't get nervous at all.
But being in crowded spaces has not been easy for Pranav.
I don't like crowds in concerts, malls, railway stations and airports, and I handle the situation to ignore the crowd.
Pranav dreams of shifting to Mumbai, and his mother Anupama has found her own process of learning and unlearning what works for Pranav.
I only followed Pranav, so I just tried to understand his challenges. Very happy, bright kid all over the place. He's kind, he's an empath. I see all kinds of things, long journey. But of course there is autism behind all this, and his autism manifests in his obsessions and his anxieties, of course. So we have coping mechanisms in place. He had such poor coordination issues back then. Look at him doing deadlifts. Fitness is religion for him.
When you talk about autism, the brains of autistic people are wired differently from the non-autistic people, right? So as a result, they perceive the environment differently. So what happens as a result is the way they communicate or understand communication is different from the non-autistic.
According to a report by ET Health World, about 18 million people in India are diagnosed with autism. It is important to understand that autism is a spectrum disorder.
When you talk about the spectrum, the bottom line is, just like in the general population, there are people with variations in intelligence. There is the same kind of variation in intelligence amongst autistic people. So the way we try and look at it is how independently can a person is able to function. So we look at that, somebody who is very independent, and you have people at the other end who would require a lot of support with all their day-to-day activities and everything in between. So people are across that entire spectrum.
What can be an inclusive environment for individuals, keeping in mind different kinds of disabilities?
Making environments inclusive for autistic people is trying to understand their experiences. So there are simple things like sometimes giving them a little time to process information, because they're dealing with a lot of sensory overload all the time. You have to give them that time.
It is critical to create inclusive spaces, as inclusive public spaces are fundamental to participation and inclusion in society.